welcome to our parent, David.
Thank you.
Before we start, I would like to make sure I'm precise that this episode is not sponsored. We're not receiving any money from EWES or any other bodies. We just saw the screw and I thought it was really interesting, so I thought I'd invite David. He replied positively and he's here to answer a lot of questions about those acoustic screws, which is, in a way, I've just done an intro, but can you introduce yourself, David, the way you would like to be introduced?
Yeah. So my name is David. I am not an acoustician, so I'm not a specialist in sound or stuff like that. I'm a business developer, basically. We've been living in Sweden for 7 years, and recently, 2 years ago, got contacted by a company called EWES. They just started working with a new product, more focusing sound, and they were thinking like I would be the right guy to find a solution for their product because they had no idea where to put their feet and they didn't know how to get the product to the market. So that's how I arrived on this project.
Okay. I did hear in 2021 about that screw and the founder. I don't know if we can mention it.
Yeah.
Is it Håkan? How do you pronounce it?
Håkan and Raimo.
Okay. So it was already in the press and you had developed some ideas, but I don't know if when you picked it up, EWES, and maybe we can start with this and maybe we'll ask more questions, technical questions.
Yeah, basically they founded the company. Acoustic was founded in 2011. And they tried to get the product to the market. So it's Håkan and Raimo. They were before that working with an acoustician, but this acoustician left the company. So it's now just them two who own the product. And they were trying to find some kind of partnership to work with the product because they had no possibility. Håkan was working full-time at the University of Malmö. Raimo was retired. And no one of them had the ability to produce the screw or to try to sell it more to the market. So they needed to have some kind of partnership. So that's when they knocked on the door of EWES. It was in 2022, I think, or late 2021. And they presented the test they had done a few acoustic tests and technical tests actually as well. And yeah, the owners of EWES thought it was a great idea. They thought like, well, why not? Let's start with it. So they started working with it. But the thing is, EWES is a company specialized in springs and metal details to the industry. The typical customer of EWES is Volvo or Scania or Schneider or these kind of companies who know precisely what kind of component they need. They will draw the component, send it to EWES. EWES will produce 1 million, 2 million of these, and that's it. This, guys, is very different because you have a product which is almost ready for the market in an area which EWES doesn't master at all. EWES has never been working in building industry. And so they needed more time, more people working on that. So basically, they couldn't perform it by themselves. They needed to have someone else to work on that. So that's why I got it in the picture.
What are the steps to develop or market a product like this? Especially when you don't have experience in the construction industry. Did you have experience?
No, you cannot say that I had experience in the building industry. But the first step is to be convinced of the product. That's a bit hard in the beginning because you arrive with a product, a spring, you think like, okay, a screw, you think, okay, it's a weird screw. You take it to professionals and they look at this screw and they're like, no way I'm going to use this screw. Is it banded? It's not banded. Why would I use this screw? So a lot of questions the professionals have because basically in this branch, people have been using the same ways of working for ages and they're not really interested in changing the ways of working. So not being from the building industry yourself, you really need to be convinced of the product. So that's the first thing, is to demonstrate the product is working for real. That's the first step.
Yeah. And go on. Yeah.
And when this step is reached, because it has been reached, that we demonstrated it was working, then you have all the people who come and look at your product and say like, yeah, it's working. But if I want to install an OSB or a harder board, it's going to take me more time. Yes, that's true. And you have loose screw. Can you have it banded? Oh, yes, we need to have it banded. So basically, even though you demonstrated the product is working, it doesn't mean the product is ready for the market. So there are a few, how do you say that? Upgrading in the product you need to be done.
And how did you, I presume it's Håkan who gave you the insights of saying it is going to work, we're convinced? Or was it somebody else who knew that it was worth investing in this?
I had a few doubts in the beginning when I started, when I was like, okay, let's give it a try. And it was basically when a customer in the USA, he bought the product for his inner cellar. And he wanted to try it. And in the US, you got a few differences with the Europe market, like the gypsum might not be the same density. And usually we have 12.5 millimeter gypsum in Europe. In the US, they usually have 15. And our screws are not made for the 15 ones. But he decided he would try anyway. And actually, he managed to install it. And when I got his feedback, it was like, I didn't go to his place. I didn't go to the US. But he installed it in the room, and the room next to it doesn't have it. And he told me when I finally got to reach him, because it took me like 2 or 3 months to be able to reach this guy, because I really needed to have his feedback. I want to have customers' feedback about the product. He told me, David, it's huge. When you are in the room, you pass to the other room where we have installed the gypsum with a sound fastener. You feel it directly when someone is walking upstairs. The difference is here. You hear a big difference. And that's really what convinced me, actually. I had seen a lot of lab reports, because they have done a lot of tests with a screw. But it's numbers. It's numbers. It's not because I see a number on the paper, I'm going to think it's going to work or not. But having this feedback from this customer in the US, it was something big for me. Convinced me.
So there was already some basic, it's an acoustic screw, so presumably there was already some acoustic tests done with it to convince you.
Acoustoc did 3 tests. They performed with RISE, which is the Swedish institution. And then EWES, when they started with the product, they started to try selling it. And they had maybe, I don't know, sold to 6 or 8 different people between 2022 and 2 years ago. So it wasn't much, but it was quite enough to get a first touch with customers and get some feedback.
And so do you communicate on finances at all, or not? I was going to ask you how much was invested, how much does it, I'm interested to know how it costs to develop.
EWES, we did the calculation last year, a roughly calculation, but it's over 2 million. We're talking euros. Yeah, it's a lot of investment.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
We're not talking in euros. Sorry, it's 2 million. We're talking in Swedish crowns. So it's 200,000 euros.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to make the conversion. Great. So I presume now and we're going to get into technical stuff, and I've got a few questions to ask you. I've also had a look at some reports. So, but what's your plan of attack to get that product adopted on site? I presume you're going to have an army of salespeople going around construction sites or events.
We have distributors. We're working through distributors. It's easier. We're not going full scale directly because we know there are a few stuff we need to fix with the product for the future. The product is working right now, but we could do it a little more simple to use for some application. I'm actually thinking of hard boards like OSB, plywood. All this one, you need to drill a pilot hole in the board. And you want to avoid this moment when you need to drill a pilot hole in the board. So we're focusing on that now to make the product better in this sense. So we're working with distributor, starting a new contract soon. Should start visiting them next month, I think. It's a company which has six shops in Stockholm and Norrköping area, and it's a special shops where you almost have 99% of the people coming in are the professionals, and I should be doing demonstration on site. So the whole point of doing that is that they will come to me, I will show them the product, and they will tell me, oh, this is crap, you need to change this, you need to change that. And I will have feedback from the market, and then we can see how we can change the product or not. Maybe it's good like it is.
So at the moment, it's obviously available as how do we, if a contractor would like to try the screws, I presume that it's available in any countries, where you mostly have distributors in Sweden, is that right?
If you are in Sweden, you have two distributors. The first one is Ahlsell, and the second one is the one coming soon, is Flinks Järn AB. And Ahlsell doesn't have it in the warehouse, but anytime they have orders, they send us order and we send it to them. Flinks Järn AB is going to have it in their shops. So anyone who comes by can grab a box and try it. And then if you're in the Eastern European countries or in Denmark, there's a company called Ortensten Group. They have it. It's the team in Latvia is trying the product right now, and they're selling it at the same time. But if you're in Poland or in another Eastern European country or in Denmark, their colleagues which will reach them and fix it so that you can have the screws.
So it's available in Latvia?
Yeah. Otherwise, we have it on our website, Fastener. And then we can send everywhere in the world. I recently sent to Japan.
If we find it nice and we think it could be useful for the UK or anywhere else in Europe, we can get in touch with the website.
You got this. The site is called soundfastener.com.
Yeah, well, we'll put everything in the comments. So coming into performances and practicalities, I won't ask you any acoustic questions yet, but I was going to ask you first of all about fire resistance, because it's a question that was raised recently. Have you tested it for fire?
We did. We tested at RISE, and we compared. It was a 70 millimeter stud with insulation and double gypsum. And we tested with standard screws and with some fastener. We wanted to see the difference, and if there was any difference. And we passed the 66 minutes limit. So they asked me, do you want to keep on the test or do you want to stop? I said, no, we can stop the test because after 66 minutes, it's valid. So regarding the fire, there is no issues. The tests are also on the website. So you can go and check.
And before, I'm just remembering, I had Paul for the last episode, who is director of Acoustic, and they have used those screws on their straw panels, and they couldn't show me the whole report, but apparently it's made a massive improvement to the performance of their panels. So maybe we'll get to send us some or to share some more reports in the future. Yeah, is it? How do you install it? Do you say what's the limitation of the plasterboard thickness? Are you limited with it, or you just screw as far as you can? Because obviously to have the acoustic effectiveness, you need to have the spring fairly free to move. Is there any specific ways of screwing the screws at all or installing them?
First of all, you always screw the first layer with the sound fastener. When it comes to the second layer, because most of the time people have 2 layers, the second layer doesn't need to be installed with sound fastener. Either you install it with standard screws, or if you do a double gypsum, you use these plugs, or you can use lime glue. So it's always for the first layer. Then sound fastener is only for wood stud. That's really important to mention, because I've had the question a lot of times, and we have not developed it for the steel studs. Not yet. Maybe in the future, but not now.
Why is that?
Because the whole point of it is the acoustic results when you have steel studs usually are better than wood studs, because wood is, otherwise we wouldn't have any guitar instrument. Wood is really good for the sound, but not when you live in an apartment made of wood. And the thing is, everyone's talking about what's the name in English now? Hållbarhetsbyggande. Sustainability. Sorry about that. Everyone's talking about sustainability and building in wood because it's more sustainable. And we saw that there was a limit, so we thought we're going to focus on the wood because they have an issue with the sound. Maybe in the future we will do something else, but for now we do focus on the wood because of that. So the whole point of it is also helping with the sustainability, because the situation right now is not as it's been.
But is it because the metal you use is not strong enough, so that you can't screw it to metal? Is that another reason?
No. It's only a matter of the screw itself. Do I have a screw here? You wouldn't see it in the camera anyway. Yeah, if you have a picture of the screw, you can put it as well on the screen so people can see. But it's just a matter of the lower screw. The lower screw, you can easily change it and have it for metal. This is not an issue. The only issue you could have is when you drill in wood. The wood is plain, so and that's when we need to have. Imagine this is a screw, and this is the head of the screw. Just under the head of the screw, you have nothing to get the screw moving forward. The only you have lines to drill in are here, in this part of the screw. And it's because the wood stud is plain that the screw can keep on going. And actually what we want is to have the head of the screw to get almost in the wood stud. So you only have between the wood stud and the first panel the spring. Are you following?
Yeah.
And the thing is, with the configuration of the usual, if you have a metal C, it's not plain, it's a metal stud, then it will stop at the head here. But then there's nothing inside to make it push you. So that's an issue. It's a small issue. It's not a big deal because we can easily fix it.
Do you know how to solve this?
We have a few ones, actually, a few ideas, but we're not focusing on them right now. We have other matters.
Do we know? Do you know the cost difference between a steel stud, let's say a standard C stud, and a timber stud?
I don't have it in my head, but we can check on the internet.
We could, yeah. If you, yeah.
I don't think it's much difference in the price.
Because, obviously the steel studs are slightly better than timber studs because there's more flexibility in the steel studs. But if you add flexibility with the screw, then that's problem solved. And, by the way, how more expensive than, or are they more expensive than standard screws?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How much in percentage?
First, you need to think it's €3 per square meter. Sound fastener.
Okay. So
it's another world. It has nothing to do with usual screws. The whole point of this product is that's why it costs €3 per square meter. It's because we want it to be cheaper than gypsum board. A lot of time when you want to lower the sound, people would tend, the building guys, they usually tell me, oh, what I do is I put some more gypsum. And then it's more quiet. Okay. So most of them wanted to see this sound fastener to be cheaper than the gypsum board. So that's why we set the price at €3 per square meter.
okay, yeah. It does make sense. And also, yeah, well, the main advantage, not only for cost, but also for acoustics, is that you can reduce the layers of plasterboard. That's got a big sustainability impact beyond the studs, obviously. We can see on the pictures that the Allen key, I don't know how, hexagon, is that hexagon or second? I don't know that. Bad. No, not standard, screw heads. Why is that? Is that because they need more strength or something else?
Standard screw heads?
Yeah.
You mean to get
Hex or flat head?
Torx, you mean? Oh, Torx will be better. Right now we're not using Torx. We're using insects.
And why is that?
It was before my time.
Okay, no, it's...
It was decided like that. But we have tried Torx, and Torx will be better. So the next would be with Torx.
Do they exist in different lengths and different width, or there's just one? So
far, there's only one format. We have had the question of different lengths. We have the question for metal studs. And we have had the question for band solution for automatic screwdrivers. So we're taking it step by step. Different lengths might come soon, actually, but not sooner than sides here. Not sooner than the bound solution.
It's a nice gun.
So it's not commercialized yet. We're still testing it. We found a German company who could develop it with us. Because the thing is, from the beginning, we had a lot of feedback from the market. Some wanted to have it on band. Some wanted to have longer screws. Some wanted to have it for steel studs. So we take it step by step. And the first step we found was this one. So this is the first one we're working on. But the length of the screw is not changed yet. They might come, actually.
Okay. Is there any load limits? I saw, obviously, you can use it for walls, but you can also use them for ceilings.
You can use them for ceiling. We have tested, so we did a slight change in the spring at EWES recently. It was 1.5 years ago. Now me get the test here. How it performs. This is it. So Acoustoc, they did the test with Lund University with the previous spring, and they obtained the strength of 61 Newton per millimeter. That's almost 6 kilos per screw. So that means you have 10 screws per square meter. So you need to have something which is below 60 kilos per square meter. As long as you're below 60 kilos per square meter, you're okay. Regarding these results that Acoustic did with the previous spring. Now we changed the spring at EWES and we tested it again. We have our own quality offices and we can do the tests in the house. And we obtained 86 Newton per millimeter with the new spring. So that means it's about a little above 8 kilos per square meter. 8 kilos per screw. So that's 80 kilos per square meter.
Okay.
So if you want to have like 3 layers of 50 millimeter stone block, you're good.
Are those reports or tests available on the website as well?
I need to check actually. I think the Lund one is, but the other one is not, because the other one is in the basis that we use for our customers at EWES. Rectron is something they use for automotive industry and this stuff. They are supposed to test all the springs, but I guess we could do that. I can send them anyway.
So one question I was going to ask you is around, it's getting small slightly and not softly into acoustic performance, but if you obviously have less connection between your plasterboard and the frame, then you will normally increase or improve the performance. And some, I know, there's some suppliers who've done loads of tests with different number of screws, and they showed that you can improve it slightly. And obviously, there's a limitation on the loads. So, have you ever tried reducing the number of screws and said, "Oh, there's a load limit"? But if in these situations where you don't hang anything from the ceiling and you just have one layer of plasterboard, you could have less screws and improve the acoustic performance. Have you ever done tests like this?
No, this we haven't done. We always use the 10 screws per square meter. Question is, would we gain a lot by reducing from 10 to 7 or to 6 screws per square meter?
That's a test to do.
It's a test to do.
Yeah. It's small things like this can make a big difference. And obviously doing tests like this comes at a cost as well. So you need a budget behind it to do your test, which is not always easy.
It's always funny, yes.
What are the... So I'm going to give an example, but it's not the only example we could give. Resin bars that are good, very good, but they've got limitations in how we install them, and especially how we screw plasterboard to them. How many times have I seen screws too long being used? And I think every acoustician knows this, that there's a limitation. You need to use fairly short screws so that the screw doesn't go through all the way through the resin bar and connect to whatever rigid element there is behind. So that's a limitation, and we tend to caveat it and say, careful, this can happen. And obviously you need to check it on site when you go. Do you know the limitations of installation of the screws and things you're trying to solve? Would anybody be able to screw the screws without too much training? Do they need training?
No, they don't need training. Maybe 5 screws, try on 5 screws, and then after 5 screws, okay, I understood how some fastener get installed, and that's it. They don't really need training at all. Because the people like the American guy who installed in his basement, he's not a professional either. And he did it himself. So that's for sure. And I wasn't a professional either. And I tested a lot of different configurations I installed myself without any training. So that's not an issue. But regarding what you mentioned with the limits, we have exactly the same issue with this metal profile. You said they use long screws and they screw too deep and then they meet something rigid behind. When you have most of our customers, they install double gypsum or OSB with chips or plywood with chips. So it's the first layer, as always, which is installed with sound fastener. And the second layer, usually they screw it into the first layer. People use normally to screw both layers through and inside the stud, which is behind. In this case, people need to know that the second layer will never be screwed in front of a stud. Whenever you install your second layer, you need to make sure your screw will be like, 2, 3, 5 centimeters on the side of the stud, because you want to avoid this connection you were talking about. You want to keep this gap between the first layer and the stud. If you screw the second layer in front of the stud, obviously the screw is gonna push and reduce the gap, and then the acoustic won't be good.
So obviously, this is something you probably put in a guide or something when you sell the screws, especially to commercial.
That's something we used to say, to tell people all the time, so they make sure they don't make any mistake in this. Then the limit in the product is that so far, if you want to use a harder board on the first layer, whether wood, plywood, OSB, habito, whatever, you need to drill a pilot hole in it. And that's working very well because we had results, really nice results. We'll talk about them later. Because you can have a plywood or an OSB and then a gypsum in the second layer. But you will need, for the first layer, which is a harder, which is not a standard gypsum, you need to drill a pilot hole. Standard people have no problem with that, doing that at home. It's not an issue, and they're happy with the result. Professionals, they want to save time. And if they have to drill a hole in the panel to install the sound fastener afterwards, when they can just take both layers at once, the shotgun and they don't want to hear about that. So this is one limit we're working hard on. We're thinking of having a drilling screw. That the lower screw of our sound fastener would be drilling the hole by itself for harder panels.
I don't know if you've done it already, but there's very satisfying videos of screws being screwed in through wood or roll plugs, and you can see the effect of each different type of roll plug. You should probably do something similar for the sound fasteners, so that people see how it's screwed and how it reacts and how it's installed. Or maybe it's not that interesting. On Instagram or YouTube, you see that, and that's in that quite satisfying to watch.
That could be funny. That's a good idea.
I'd be happy to do it. It's during my spare time.
Not working. Working, not working.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, talking about working, not working, do you have, because when you install the screws, you don't know, you can't see whether they've been screwed correctly or not, whether the spring is jammed or the spring is all fully free to move. Have you done any tests on how the chances of being jammed or the chances of success of those screws?
This is why we changed the spring of the screw. Because we had at the beginning a spring which should have been okay for the distance between the first layer and the stud. But the thing is, once installed to the lower screw and the head of the sound fastener, actually you didn't have the same effect that the spring had. You had less effect. And when you install the screw in a panel, then we lost a lot of the gap. It was almost connected. So we decided to change the spring to make sure we always have a gap which is at least 1 millimeter, 1 to 2 millimeters. What you can do to make sure you have it installed well is you put your bits in a bit holder. the standard base holder. If you use a base holder, when the base holder will get against the panel, that means you cannot screw deeper because you cannot go forward. That means it is well installed. There's no chance that it is missed. It will always have between 1 and 2 millimeters spring effect.
Always. Interesting. Getting slowly into acoustic. I told you before we were recording that I would make some comments about a few data I showed. And it seems like obviously you've done a lot of comparisons between some acoustic studs and no acoustic studs, so standard studs, rigid studs, and the fasteners. And it seems like the screws are working very well when you need to achieve an RW figure. So there's a good improvement. And obviously but as soon as you get into the low frequencies and you look at low frequency corrections like CTR for the acoustic gigs, then that's when we lose a little bit of performance. So for what that means is that maybe you're probably going to be using the screws more for offices and education. You told me before, it's the comment you had also from professionals, but maybe not so much for residentials when you have more stringent low frequency requirements. What's your comment? I think I know where that comes from, and maybe you know the answer as well, and maybe you've got developments. What are your comments about this?
The screw the sound fastener doesn't make any miracle regarding the low frequencies, that's for sure. We are not investigating it right now. There are a lot of other criteria who get into it, like the material you can use, whether you have something which has much more density or not. That would help a lot with the lower frequencies. So this is not where we are with the screw itself, because I'm not sure whether we would have enough strength in the sound fastener to hold the panel and at the same time confront the lower frequencies. That's something I'm not sure we can manage to do. So low frequencies, no. Very low frequencies.
I think this is mainly due, and all the vibration experts would probably correct me if I'm wrong, and they can write comments to correct me if they want. But it's definitely due to the characteristics of the springs, and obviously the natural frequency of the springs, once they're loaded with a certain load. So if you change that for, I guess, a lower natural frequency, and maybe bigger springs or longer springs, all the spring experts, please correct me, then you'll improve the performance at low frequencies. But obviously you need to be prepared to change the size of the screw, maybe larger screws, and you don't want to have massive screws. And I can see them as mini steel hangers in a way, but you need to change the characteristics. Do you have any plans, or have you had that comment before? I presume yes.
Yeah. For the low frequencies, definitely. Especially in the wood industry, when you start talking with those who are specialized in timber building, they tell you all the time about this issue with low frequencies, and this is where we don't do any miracle.
Do you have any vibration experts at EWES who do look into this?
We have technicians. Yeah, we have experts. But with vibration, I wouldn't know if we do have someone who can.
Look at the stiffness.
Stiffness, definitely. No, that's something I need to check, actually. It's a good
Yeah,
Good
I think,
point.
and obviously, this is still recorded. If you can, obviously, it would be amazing if you can sell that for residential projects, because obviously there's a lot of schools and office buildings that are made with timber, but there's so many houses and flats that are also made with timber, and missing that. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't use that. I mean, there's, for example, you could
RW
have,
is working well, but it's impact sound we're talking about right now, and lower frequency with impact sound. We don't do any miracle. We're not far from the acoustic profile, though, when you check the results, but lower frequencies.
yeah. Where is it? Where they're produced? Do you communicate on this?
Oh yeah, we produced them in the beginning in Sweden. Then we had to change the spring, and so we had to think about the cost of doing that, because we had to take off the previous spring and install a new spring. So we have the chance to be in a group which has factories in 4 different countries around the world. So right now it's in Bosnia, but it doesn't mean it won't come back to Sweden. We have a lot of automation at EWES, and we have solutions to automatize the assembling of this sound fastener screw. But the thing is, we need to sell volume before doing that. So once we have automatized the process, it's no big deal. We can do it wherever.
Why is that in Bosnia? Is that because there's experts
Because
there?
EWES has factories in Bosnia, Serbia, China, and Sweden.
It'd be good to pay a visit to those factories and film the process. It would be quite interesting from start to finish. What sort of future developments then do you have in mind, or are you currently doing? Maybe you
The
can.
one we're working hard on right now is the drilling lower screw.
Drilling what way?
Lower screw.
Okay.
Because so far the lower screw, as I said, if you want, for instance, to install the sound fastener in the plywood, you'll be stopped at the head of the lower screw, and it won't go through. And even if it went through, it wouldn't leave enough space for the spring to be activated correctly. So basically what you need to do right now is to drill a 10 millimeter pilot hole in your plywood, and then you can install your screw in the hole. And the head of the sound fastener will hold the plywood. So that's an extra moment right now. And we know that the professionals don't want to see that. So we're working on this.
Okay. Any other developments at all, or you have in mind?
This one you saw before, the band screw. This one is we're testing it now. And if it's okay, in about maybe 4 or 5 months, we will launch it to the market.
I actually think there's an application at the moment. I've heard about projects where there's a house where they need to do another, like minimize the cavity, where they need to create some disconnections, and obviously independent lining is quite thick. But yeah. How do we get in touch with you? How, obviously there's the website that has currently there's reports, acoustic reports, so you can access freely. You don't even need to speak to you. What are the best ways to get in touch with you guys?
As you mentioned, the website, then you also can reach me through LinkedIn. If you check Sound Fastener on LinkedIn, you'll find me. And then I'm reachable if you check the EWES website, EWES. If you check in the contacts, you will find someone who looks like me, and it's me. Then you have my phone and my mail address.
Well, thank you for answering those questions. And then repeat, this episode wasn't sponsored at all. I just contacted David, and he accepted the invitation. So thank you very much, and I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you.